Opening housekeeping slide. We have recently begun using the GoToWebinar platform to teach our webinars. And so this is a little different than how it used to be if you have previously attended. We used to use GoToMeeting, which was designed to have more of a live interaction. Webinar is less interactive, so you are all automatically in auto mute mode. The only way I will be able to hear you is if you indicate by raising your hand, I can unmute you. So at the end for questions and answers, you will have that opportunity if you have any questions. So there's a demonstration here on your GoToMeeting control panel where you can raise your hand. During the presentation, I will not be watching, so I will not see that. But at the end for Q&A, I will be watching, and then if you have a question, I can unmute you so we can hear you. So that said, today's session is Prognosis Denali Upgrade, Practice Management Part 1. We are actually conducting 5 sessions for our Denali upgrade. 2 of those deal with practice management or billing. 2 of those deal with EMR. And then we have the 5th session which deals with portals. What we're looking at today is the first part of our practice management or billing side. So what we're going to cover in today's hour is the new revenue cycle dashboard, the changes we've made to the remittance posting screen and process, and then other payment-related features that are either enhanced or new to the system, as well as changes we've made to the statements. First of all, we're going to look at our revenue cycle dashboard. This is now a system-level icon. If you notice the number 1 bubble, that will be applicable on your billing side only at the system level. You will have this new graph icon that will open up this dashboard. And the dashboard itself will open full screen as you see pictured here. For those of you also familiar with the EMR side, this loosely resembles your encounter level face sheet where you also have 9 squares of data on the clinical side. This is the financial equivalent. Or rather the revenue cycle equivalent, because you can also have some clinical level detail here if you want it, based on how you configure it. So when you initially load the dashboard by clicking this icon, it is going to load filtered to the current system date, and it does refresh in real time. And as we go through the next few slides, you will see how you can tweak and customize what is displayed here. What you're looking at on this slide is the default dashboard that you will get once the upgrade is applied to your facility. In the upper left, across the title of the dashboard, you have the funnel icon. On the billing side, that funnel allows you to define filters. That is also its application here on the dashboard. It's just going to be minimal as far as how you can filter it. The filter that you define is going to apply to all 9 squares down below. And as you see pictured here now populated, the 9 squares may be a different type of chart or a graph. You may have a pie chart or a bar graph based on how you configure it. And it's going to reflect different statistics. We see here, and again, you're looking at the default here when you get the upgrade. So if you like the default values, you don't even need to worry about customizing it. But that top row is appointment level statistics, scheduled appointments by location, patient seen, and new patient seen. So you can differentiate like your follow-up or established patients versus new patients. Then in the middle, we have different levels of primary insurance billed, charges that have been billed amount by date, and then at the bottom, payment summaries or payer mix. So those are the standards. And as you're going to see as we go through, there's 20 predefined graphs included that you may decide if you want to change these, or you can create your own. Now, when you click that filter, it is going to be specific to the user during that session. And what that means is as long as you're logged in, whatever filters you define up in this funnel will be relevant for you only on your computer. Everybody else in the practice will still have the benefit of either the default filters for that day or whatever they've customized. But when you log out, it does reset to the default for the current date. So when you log in the next day, your filter will be cleared back to tomorrow's date. But throughout your logged in session, you'll be able to go back and forth into this dashboard and see it based on the filters you've defined. And this shows you here in the diagram in the middle the filters you have at a user level during that session. You can limit it to a specific number of days and or a date period. The number of days means maybe you only want to know the last 30 days or the last 60 days, but you don't want to count on the calendar. Do I go back to September 15th? Do I go back to September 24th? You can just say 30 days or 60 days or whatever. Or you can specify this week, this month, whatever your scenario. And then for those of you who do have multiple doctors, multiple locations, it defaults to all, but if you would like to filter it down to one doctor versus the others or one location, you can do that. Now these will apply to, again, all 9 of those squares. So it would apply to the encounters, the billed charges, the payer mix, and so on. Now dissecting the dashboard features then, after you have filtered it, and so you've got your data displayed, each square on that face sheet or on that dashboard is what we're going to look at over these next couple of slides. You've got your title bar that's going to tell you the name of the data displayed in there, but then as you see pictured here by the number 1 and the number 2 bubbles, there are a couple of icons as well. The number 1 will let you zoom in on that cell, making it bigger. So it would become more full screen for you so that you can view a larger snapshot of it. The options menu provides actions relevant to the data in that cell. And you see here on the pop-up menu, your options are to refresh the data, to view a data format of the graph, or to print a hard copy. You've also got the tooltip, so you can hover your mouse over, and that would give you a full detail of the description. Because obviously screen real estate is going to truncate it. And so if you have defined custom filters, you will notice here at the bottom, the number 3, it is giving you the full name as well as the filters you've defined, including the date range, the doctor, and location. Now, if you've chosen to zoom, as I mentioned, that will become full screen, almost full screen, so you can see a larger picture of that particular graph. And then within the zoomed view, you also have an additional icon to view the data format. So whenever you're looking at a gauge or a graph, if you would like the data format, you have that little icon to give you the table version. So you can choose between the graph or the data. The thing about viewing the data, if you notice the number 2 bubble here, it has another icon that would then allow you to export that data you're looking at to a CSV file, which stands for comma delimited file, that you could then import to Excel or QuickBooks or any other outside application that you may need that data for. So you really have a lot of functionality here at the statistical level, whether you want to print it in graph form, print it in data form, view it in either graphical or data form, or export the data to be used in another application. Now within a graph itself, you can also zoom in on a specific area to get a larger picture and a tooltip with the results of that one area. And this is in conjunction with your data legend. Now the data legend is automatically compiled by the system when it creates your graph based on the parameters inside the query. For instance, if you see here in our example of primary insurance is billed, the legend is automatically color-coded there as to what color represents what insurance company. And if you would like to refresh your data minus a value on that legend, you can do so by selecting the one that you want to get rid of. In our example here, if you notice the top example, where we're looking at the top 5 denials, we have all 5 choices displayed. But in the lower example, we have removed managed care. By clicking on the orange colored dot, it refreshes your data in real time minus the one that you've gotten rid of. So this gives you an opportunity to, on demand, take a statistic and refresh it based on different projects maybe that you're operating on, so that you can get it really drilled down to the level of detail you need. Now going back to the title area of your dashboard, over to the far right, we have our settings or the gear icon. And this is how you configure it. So the left-hand funnel was defining your filter. We just looked at the functionality within the viewing area based on the filters you defined. Now if you want to configure that viewing area to make different graphs appear, you can go into the little gear icon in the upper right. And that opens up your configuration screen that we see pictured here. In the upper left, you've got the little thumbnail of your dashboard, which kind of looks like a Sudoku table, numbered 1 through 9. Each number represents the square on the dashboard, left to right, top to bottom. It automatically selects number 1. That's why that number is showing in red. You can choose whichever square you want to configure, however. Now, if you want to configure them all, it starts with number 1, and as soon as you modify it, it automatically selects number 2. You change it, it automatically selects number 3, and so on. But if you wanted to go directly to number 7 or directly to number 9, you can do that by clicking it in this thumbnail. And then where number 3 is pointing is where you decide if you want a graph or a gauge. Now with regards to graphs, the system is going to come when you get your upgrade preloaded with 20 standard key performance index graphs, as you see pictured here. Different ones at an aging level, at a billing, collection, patient level. And out of these 20, 9 of them are going to be the standard pre-default ones. But you can choose a different one here at each square if you would so desire by simply choosing it out of the pick list. A gauge, instead of a graph, kind of looks like your gas gauge that you see here in the lower right. And basically what that allows you to do is based on the query, you can assign thresholds, such as a minimum and a maximum, that you want to be compared for that particular statistic. That way when you monitor this visually, you can see what's called the green zone and see how well you're rating based on the ranges that you have specified locally. So gauges are very subjective and localized. So you're not going to have any of these predefined by default. You have the queries. As you see here in the upper right, there are 5 predefined gauge queries based on billed amount, copays collected, receipts collected, and so on. And then within each of those, you can assign your thresholds. If you would need a different one, then that would have to go through our engineering team to create a custom gauge for you. Now, if you would like to go back at any time to the default dashboard that you're going to get out of the box with the upgrade, you do have a default button at the bottom. Maybe you're trying to manipulate it and you've made mistakes and it's not working. Click default and it'll put it back to the way it was. So that is the new revenue cycle dashboard. It is system level. So the configuration settings that you do in those 9 different squares does apply to everybody. Okay, the next big feature that we're going to look at is the EOB ERA user interface, and this is probably the biggest change with regards to the billing module in this upgrade. Because we have changed the screen, this has improved the efficiency in your navigation. It has also improved the speed and efficiency with the processes behind the scenes, as well as improved the ability of editing a reopened voucher when you need to correct a payment that was previously posted. So not only are we going to look at aesthetic changes to the screen itself, but that impacts the way you maneuver through it when you're wearing the cash posting hat. So first of all here, these first 2 screens, we're going to do a comparison of the new user interface versus the existing. So this is what you're used to seeing right now. The EOB screen is kind of divided into 3 sections. You've got your header at the top, you've got your claim selection in the middle, and then based on the claim that is selected at the bottom, you get the charge displays for that claim. Well, what we've done in the new user interface is taken those bottom 2 sections and combined them into one. And it is now presented in an accordion type fashion. meaning it expands and collapses right in place. So right away, you can see visually your hand-eye coordination is going to be enhanced, because you're not going to have to continually be looking, what claim do I have in the middle, what charge rows do I have at the bottom? Because as you expand a claim, it will automatically expand right where you are and display the charges, and then when you're done with it, it will collapse it and open the next one. We've also added, if you notice off to the far right, there's a column with a button that says post. This allows you to post an individual claim as you go. We're going to get into that a little bit later here as far as the benefit of doing that. You do still have the ready to post at the voucher level. So the basic fundamentals of entering a remittance header and then marking it ready to post, that all remains intact. So that piece of your workflow is unchanged. What has changed is that middle part, when you're entering the details of the remittance at a claim and or charge level. That is where these changes take effect. So visually, you will have that difference. Now just dissecting it again, going a little bit more detail here. On the header section, there aren't any changes to the labeling or positioning at the header level, except where you have your orange and green colored hyperlinks for the allocated amount and the remaining amount. It's kind of a muted color palette. So it's still green and orange, but instead of this bright neon green and orange that you have now, it's a softened green and orange. The one change at this level, however, is with regards to your icons. If you notice my 3 bullets here, we have 3 new icons introduced to the cash posting screen. The first one, EOB. This lets you print an individual claim level EOB in an HTML format for that selected claim. Now this currently is for payments only, so you're not going to be able to have this feature on a recoup. And it is also applicable only for your primary and secondary EOBs. But in that scenario where you've posted a primary payment or a secondary payment, and there is a balance left over for the next responsible person, whether it's for the patient or for a secondary or tertiary payer, you can now print an individual EOB with that individual claim for that secondary or tertiary balance. The second new icon here is the umbrella with the word add on it. And this allows you to make changes to billed insurances once that voucher has been posted. Now, it's important to note this feature already exists at the claim level. So when you're wearing your billing hat and you need to modify the insurance on a claim in a billed status, when you're on the claim page, you do this by clicking on the hyperlink, the primary, the secondary, or the tertiary hyperlink. And then that opens up the change insurance screen, and you can change the insurance. This, by bringing it out to, excuse me, bringing it out here to the ERA level, improves the cash posting process when, as a cashier, when you're wearing that hat, you identify, you have an EOB here from AARP, but the insurance says United American, because maybe the patient's insurance changed, but nobody updated it at the point of registration, so the wrong insurance got carried forward, but Medicare still crossed it over correctly. So you've actually got the correct money, you've got the wrong insurance, and now you can't post it. Well, in the existing version, that is a limitation. You'd have to stop what you're doing on the remittance screen, fix it on the claim screen, fake bill it, and then come back in here and apply the money. So now you can do it all at the same time. So when you're wearing that cashier hat, if you have that ability to make that kind of identification and correction, you can do it all at once here and not have to stop the remittance piece. We've also added the Charge Next write-off icon. So again, when you have that cashier hat on, if you're able to identify that balance needs to be written off or moved into the next responsible person, you can take care of that decision and complete your remittance piece. Now moving to the bottom part then, where we have combined the second and the third sections of your existing screen into one new accordion. excuse me, you'll notice here, first of all, in your existing version now, you can only select 4 claims or visually see 4 claims at a time because of the screen real estate. Well, now you can see up to 8 within the collapsed view. It actually will store up to 25, so that your scroll bar will give you far more scalability here based on claim selection. But as each claim is selected, it is brought into this accordion view in a collapsed format, meaning the charge rows are hidden. And if you notice here in the top row there that's outlined in blue, on the very far left margin, there's a little icon pointing right, a triangle. That allows you to expand or collapse. Actually, you can click anywhere on the row, and it will expand it or collapse it. Now, in my screen example, it kind of looks like it's shaded in a white background, whereas everything else is gray. This color may vary on your computer based on your screen resolution, whether you're in high definition, based on the settings of your computer itself. It's going to be some sort of a light citrusy color, pale yellow or lime green, or in my example, for some reason it showed up as white. But it will be some sort of a pastel color to differentiate all of the other claims, which will display in gray. And then, as I mentioned, off to the far right, you do have the new post button that we're going to look at in our single claim workflow. And you do still have the trash can over on the left if you need to delete a claim. Maybe you selected a claim in error that's really not part of this remittance. As long as you haven't posted it yet, you can remove it. So the claim selection aspect itself is unchanged as far as the mechanics of it. It's the way it populates in the screen that is different, the visualization of it. And then this shows you that same view expanded. So what it has done is right there in place brought your charge rows up when you've clicked on that white row without moving your hand-eye coordination anywhere. You can just keep on going right through the screen. And then within the charge rows, you've got the same visual color displays that you have now, meaning alternating gray rows and blue indicates the row that you're working on, the row where your cursor is that you're actually allocating. So the navigation and tab order for you and when you're wearing that cash posting hat is unchanged. It's just visually on the screen going to take place right in place at the claim level now instead of down below at the bottom. And as you complete that claim, it will collapse and the next one will expand. And the screen real estate auto adjusts, meaning again your hand-eye coordination doesn't have to move, because when you close this claim and open the next one, it's going to collapse the one you just were working, scroll it out of the way at the top of your screen, and just keep bringing up the next ones available. That way it stays right there in that same visual area on your screen for a maximum of up to 15 per page, based on that property that you see at the bottom. Now, because of this design change, we've got a new feature called single claim posting. This is going to allow you to post an individual claim without posting the entire remittance. It also allows you to unpost and reallocate amounts for a single claim without having an impact on anything else in that remittance. And actually, I should add a third bullet point here, that it gives you it removes the restrictions that you currently have when it comes to allocation, meaning you can now modify anything. In the current version, when you reopen a claim, you're only allowed to change it from a copay to a non-cover to a deductible, but you can't change the dollar amount. You're now going to be able to even change dollar amount. So kind of expanding on what I just said, the functional impact, header and claim selection remains the same. You're able to post individual payments within that multi-payment voucher, as well as edit or unpost a single payment. Now, for those of you already using that type of functionality, we have what's called a single claim edit right now. That has gone away now with the Denali upgrade. Single claim posting is replacing single claim edit. If you are using single claim edit right now, this message in the green box is a conversion alert for you. During conversion, any single claim entries that are currently left reopened will automatically get reposted exactly how they originally were. So if you're currently in that scenario and it's indicated visually as you see here on your home page, you see that entry open EOB number in red to let you know that somebody has reopened EOBs without completely closing them again. This is what will occur. So when you're notified that the upgrade's happening that night, if you have any EOBs left open like this, they're going to get reposted the way they originally were. So you do want to make sure that you go ahead and complete those transactions if that applies to you. Functionally, if you do choose to do single claim posting, it will allocate immediately, and meaning that it validates your allocations immediately for that one claim. This is a great time saver to you as a cashier because the way it works now, validations only occur at the very end when you click ready to post. So if you just went through an hour keying in 100 entries off of this paper EOB, and now you click ready to post, and there is an error all the way back on the first claim you entered, or the 10th claim, or the 28th claim, you get all these little pop-ups telling you, cannot post because, and then you have to go find that claim and fix it, try to make ready to post, and then it'll validate and give you another error. So that's a great time waster. By doing single claim editing or single claim posting, validations happen in real time at the claim level, so it saves you a lot of time. You can fix them as you go. That way at the very end, when you do say ready to post, which is still required to actually validate that payment, there's no more validation to occur, so you're not going to get any errors that prevent you from doing it. This also means you have immediate adjudication of claim level responsibilities, meaning that next bucket will automatically be there. So if statements run tonight and you forgot to mark the remittance post ready to post at the overall voucher level, your statements will be correct for all the ones you individually posted. Now there is a limitation here. This limitation calls in to what I was just saying, that you still have to say ready to post at the overall voucher level, and that is to get the final commitment to your financial reports. As you're doing single claim post, the accounting is occurring at a claim level or a patient level, not at a system financial analysis level. So we are able to do adjudication for individual claims and patient statements, but overall for your financial reports, that still only takes place at the very end when you mark the entire remittance voucher itself posted. So you do still have to say ready to post in order to get your financial reports correct. So the mechanical interaction of posting an EOB, again, posting that EOB, creating the headers, the same as always. You select the claim in that binocular as always, and then the claims are going to populate in the accordion view. That's the difference, is the way the screen populates, not your mechanics of actually selecting the claims. And if you do electronic remittances, same rules apply. They'll just automatically be here in the accordion view. Click the little triangle on the left margin or anywhere within that focused row. That's going to expand right in place, highlighting the first row in blue, and as you move your tab through the fields and allocating, the blue goes to the next gray line. All of that is the same again as now. It's just right there in place in the middle. Now here's where the difference comes in, is on the far right where you have the little post button. If you want to allocate the individual details as you go on an individual claim by claim level, you can click the post button, and that will immediately apply those allocated amounts, adjudicate any remaining balance into the next responsible party, and validate, so that if there's anything wrong at that level for that claim, irregardless of anything else in the remittance overall, you can go ahead and fix it immediately. And then once you've done that on every single claim, at the very bottom, you're still going to say ready to post. So it's just that middle piece there of the individual claim posting, if you want to take benefit of, that has changed. Otherwise, the process will be the same as right now. Your choice if you want to take advantage of that real-time validation by clicking the single claim post or not. And as you're going through this accordion, by the way, as you complete the one revenue line, the allocation, it automatically collapses and takes you to the next line. Now the additional benefit here is once you've posted it, if you see here now in my screen capture, that post button, the label has changed from post to edit, and it has a little green check mark in front of it. That means that you posted that payment. So if you now want to modify it, you don't have to reopen the entire remittance. You can just edit this one payment. No other posted claim will be unposted like it is now. So that's a big saver as well. And again, when you reopen this payment, you can make any change you need. There's no longer a limitation. So if you want to change the dollar amount as well as change the copay, coinsurance, write-off adjustment, you can. And in the existing version, when you do single claim edit and you reopen that remittance to do this, then on your patient account screen, you see all these payments unapplied. You'll see the word unapplied. And if something happens in the meantime, statements get generated, it can be a mess. So none of that is a factor anymore in this scenario because it is not unapplying anything other than that one payment. So those are the changes at the remittance level, aesthetically to the user interface, the new accordion level, combining claim and charge row details, and then the single claim edit posting. Now moving outside of insurance EOBs, we've got some additional payment level enhancements. First of all, at the patient payment level, there's a full utilization tracking now for co-payments as well as patient receipts. Previously, when version 3 came out, we introduced the advanced tracking where you were able to track an advance payment. Well, this goes one step further and not only tracking how the money is allocated, but it takes it back to the source. So an original co-payment, if I give you a $20 bill or a check for $20 and I want to know now a year later how you use those $20, you can give me an exact accounting all the way back to the initial source. So on the patient account screen in your copay table and on the copay icon, if you're using this through the EMR side, there is a new icon added. That is, it's another dollar sign here. As you see, it's a green dollar sign with a little check mark form in front of it. And this is opening up the copay utilization table. So this is now specific to that copayment source. That's why it is applicable at this level. So in your copay table on the account screen, you have the icon next to the ID because it is each individual ID that it's tracking. And when you open it up, it tells you exactly how that particular source of money was utilized. So as we see here in our lower example, using this $20 copayment, the original source, and the first entry, as the number 2 is pointing, is always that source payment. So when I come into the front desk and I make a payment, that is the first entry here. And that is why, as you see next to the number 2, the type of transaction is EN for encounter. I paid that at the time of my encounter. And now, the way the allocations occur underneath, if you notice to the right of my number 3 or to the left of my number 3, my document number says ERA, and then there's an ERA number. Every time you post a remittance, when you have that cashier hat on, and that cashier or that remittance says X number of dollars is a copayment, you apportion that accordingly when you're allocating the remittance on your cash posting screen. So in this example, out of the patient made the original $75 copayment in May. Now in June, we're processing the first remittance. And that remittance says the copayment is only $31.84. So the patient paid $75, but with this remittance, I'm only taking $31.84 of it. Therefore, there's still balance of $43.16 in the advance bucket. Well, now in July, I'm getting another remittance, and that remittance says there is a copayment of $43.16. So now I'm applying the $43.16. So the allocation and the application of the money that you're allocating in that transaction is being tracked now at a voucher level. So each line by date, by voucher, is going to tell you how that money got utilized. So again, if a year down the road, I say, I gave you $75 back in May, but when I got my EOB from the insurance, it said I didn't owe you $75, so what'd you do with my money? I want a refund. You can say, well, no, sir, you're not due a refund because in June, the insurance paid on another account and you owed $31.84, so we put it there. And then in July, they paid a third account where you owed $43.16, so we put it there. And that absorbed the $75. So you have an exact accounting now from the original source to how it was utilized. Same feature is at the patient receipt level. And the thing now is on a receipt, unlike in a copay scenario, you can post directly to Advance. So when you're entering this receipt, you can actually enter it to Advance and immediately allocate it all at once based on, of course, the scenario. Because the patient, you may get a check in the mail. In this example, we got a $20 check. Well, when you go into the patient's allocation, the check that they're sending the $20 on, he actually only owed $5. So that gives you $15 to put into Advance. So you apply the $5 to that current claim, but it immediately created the Advance credit of $15. So now that number one creates a hyperlink called Allocate Advance. So all in one transaction. This is the significant change here. In your existing version, you would do one transaction where you allocate the $5 and $15 goes into Advance. Then you have to go to another menu option called Advance, Move from Advance, and then create a voucher to move that $15. Well, you can do it all at the same time now. So as soon as you've allocated that money into the Advance bucket, this Allocate Advance hyperlink becomes available to you. And then you can move that $15 however you need to his other open accounts. So it's giving you the tracking at that individual payment source level again, but you're also able to do it all in one transaction, which is a great time saver for you. And then when you click the Used Advanced hyperlink, it gives you the detail as to the voucher number that moved that money. Because every movement of money in Prognosis has a voucher number, or what we call document number. That way you've got something to trace it back to. And all of these steps of the way, you're asked to enter a remark. If you notice here in my lower screen example, right above my blue bubble, I just entered a remark, webinar demonstration. In your world, of course, you could be more descriptive as to how that money transaction, why it's occurring. That way you have a lot of detail to give your patient when they question you. And along those same lines, we have made a slight aesthetic change in the screen by flip-flopping the top and the bottom. The unapplied advance amounts, meaning the credit, is now on the top of the screen with the open balances due on the bottom. Whereas in the existing version, it's the opposite. You got the open balances on top and the credit on the bottom. The next enhanced feature, also at a payment level, and it actually could apply at a patient payment or an insurance payment, or employer level even, if you do employer billing in your office, and that is e-payment. With regards to electronic credit card payments, until now we've only supported one vendor. Well, with the new Denali upgrade, we do have multiple vendor support. Because of that, the former property that was hard-coded to the vendor PayPros is obsolete, and there is a new property added called Gateway Interface where we assign the vendor so that if you, whatever vendor you're using, we can accommodate. We've also at the same time adopted now a card on file provision, which is available at the merchant level. So on the applicable cash entry screens where you are going to do the e-payment, and even on the patient portal, if you allow patients to make payments there electronically, and on payment plans, if you have set up payment plans for your patients. All of these areas now have a new option called card on file. So once the patient has used their credit card through the electronic payment feature at least one time, if you save it on file in an encrypted, HIPAA-protected format, of course, you now can use it again on future transactions. There's new validations added at the different levels. A new property that makes the security code optional based on the vendor, because some vendors need it and some don't. And of course, if you are already on e-payment, you may be aware of these provisions. If not, or if you would like to have it added to your contract, contact technical support. I believe John in technical support in our corporate office in San Jose is the main contact. If not, he could get you in contact with who need it. But anybody at technical support could assist you in getting this feature enabled. The difference when you have ePay enabled versus not, you'll notice here the comparison in our payment mode. When you have the ellipsis icon, as in our top bullet point, that's manual credit card entry. When you have the credit button next to the ellipsis icon, that means you have electronic payment. And if you notice in the middle screen example, all except the last 4 digits of the credit card number are masked with X's for the HIPAA protectivity. And that lends itself then to that card on file provision. And this is what the screen interface looks like. For those of you already doing electronic payments, this save card information on the lower left is a new checkbox on your screen that you previously did not have. So if you are entering that credit card and you now want to save it with the patient's permission, you can indicate save it on file. This is specific to each merchant. And again, this would be covered when you are getting e-payment enabled at your practice. You have to set up what's called a merchant. Typically, it's going to be one merchant per practice unless you have different tax IDs. You might need a different merchant for each tax ID or different business unit. That all depends on how you do your business. And that all gets set up accordingly. But this card on file provision is at a merchant level. So if you're in that scenario and I come to you as a patient with a credit card, you do need to save me on file uniquely one transaction per merchant before you can use it on file again in the future. And this shows where when you're creating your payment plans, there is the new field called card on file. And you can select the card on file that you want to apply to that payment plan. And then when their monthly payment is due, it'll automatically do the electronic transaction for you. Now this, of course, does have the prerequisite of being enrolled with e-payments and having the vendor set up based on what we just looked at. There's also a property, if you notice the third bullet point here, specifically for payment plans on e-payment, you also have to define that property. So those are all of the features at a payment level in the Denali upgrade. Now we're going to look at the enhancements to the patient statement. Overall, with regards to your statements, there are new smart tags that replace the former clinic location tags. Now what that means, taking computer talk down to layman terms, this now means that addresses and headers and filters are going to be automatically applied by the system, so you don't have to have each one hard-coded. This gives you greater flexibility now in defining your statement runs, whether you want it at a patient statement, a guarantor statement, or an attorney statement. There's refined send by options, which now includes emailing, refined dunning message options, and filter by options. Now those last ones there are dealing with your bulk statement mailings. First of all, when you go in to order an individual patient statement, meaning on demand, not your monthlies, but when you want to just generate a statement on demand, and you go under the report statement menu option, there's a screen change here. And you see the comparison between the pink and the current version you have here in the lower left in pink versus the new Denali version in blue. You no longer have set different filters based on claim level or charge level, because everything now with those smart tags are going to be encompassed into the template design instead of you having to select it at runtime. So now you just select your filters, whether you want to hide the diagnosis or hide the description of the CPT code, and then whether you order at claim level or charge line level, it's all going to be based on the template you choose. So that user interface has been simplified in that regard. And if you notice in the upper right, we've also added the settings icon. And I'll show you that in a couple of more slides in, where you might have to go into the settings and make a modification. We've also modified the layout of statement type 3, which is your standard charge code level statement. That is now customizable. And we've added 2 new statement types, 4 and 5. So this is the settings I mentioned. You have the new gear icon. If you need to modify these statements when you're running your, or modify these properties in conjunction with generating your statements. There's a couple of new properties that have been added. Statement gap in days and responsible person gap in days. So this again is based on the statement type, whether it's a patient statement or a guarantor statement. And if you want to specify a number of days in between the patient getting statements. Any other property, if you wanted to come in here and modify the template name or whatever, you now have access as a user to do it directly through the statement selection window. Now I mentioned statement type 3 can now be customized. This is the standard statement whenever you run it at a charge code level. It can now be customized in that you can have the columns switched around. If there's certain columns here you want to get rid of, new columns you want to have added, you can contact technical support and they can customize accordingly for you. There's a new statement type 4. Statement type 4 takes your total charges column and it now reflects patient plus insurance combined. And then at the bottom, it breaks it out at a patient level and an insurance level. And in the detail, it breaks it out insurance level and patient level to make it a little clearer for your patient if you want to give them that level of detail. And then the new statement type 5 is the enhanced version of our current standard claim level statement type 2. This now maintains a running balance in the patient balance column. It itemizes your total charges minus the payment, so it clearly shows the net balance due. So it's going to have a continual calculated rundown in that far right running balance total. So these new statement types are automatically available if you want to use them. When it comes to scheduling your bulk statements, there's a new mode, meaning you can set them up for email. And there's also now the ability of choosing the template specific. So you can have all these different statements generated at monthly intervals, weekly intervals, however often you want to set them up is up to you. But you can do it at an individual statement type level. If you notice here in my upper right, the screenshot of my Denali, I have statement for guarantor. In the lower left, the one outlined in pink, it says statement for patient. You also have statement for attorney. So you can set up different jobs and have different types of statements based on different templates with different criteria. And if you now want to email some, you can. If you're going to use the new email option, because of HIPAA, the statement does go out as an encrypted attachment, meaning the recipient gets an email that says your statement is attached. when they click the attachment, they have to enter a password to view the actual data on that statement. The password rules are, if it is a patient statement, their password to open the attached statement is their date of birth, as well as the first 4 letters of the patient's last name. And the date of birth is all 8 digits. Month, month, day, day, century, century, year, year. Guarantor, same rule, only it's the first 4 letters of the guarantor's last name. Patient statement would be the patient's last name. Guarantor statement is the guarantor's last name. Attorney statement is the attorney phone number. So if you are doing attorney billing, the assumption here is that you're using the attorney master, and in that attorney master you have stored their phone number. Outstanding reminder letters. There's a label change on the screen. There's a new field added as well. If you notice here again in the Denali, you have a new field called statement count more than, where you can define the number of letters or the number of statements that is required before you send a letter out. So if you don't want to start sending these letters to the patients until after 3 statements, for instance, you can specify that now. There is a label change as well. Currently, under the patient's financial class, it says non-collection versus collection, simply a label change to suppressed, not suppressed. Logically, it's the same. If you're an older client, prior to us incorporating the collection agency workflow, financial classes was how collections were handled, and that's what this logic involved. But now that we have a collection agency workflow, newer clients do not use financial codes for that anymore, but the logic is still intact to suppress statements. So that's why we've done the label change now. All right, so what's next after all of, these are all the features included in the upgrade. You will be notified when the upgrade is going to occur for your practice. So once you start, when you log into Prognosis, 7 days out, you will get this pop-up informing you that you're scheduled for the upgrade. If you have any questions, of course, you can always contact technical support. Typically, support and us in education do not know the schedule. Engineering is uploading dozens of clients every day of the week, so it just gets scheduled, and that is why 7 days out you get this pop-up telling you when to expect it. After the upgrade gets applied, you will start to notice we're using these first-time user experience bubbles, which are little pop-ups. Wherever there's a new feature, a new icon, a new functionality. It kind of summarizes in 1 or 2 sentences or phrases what the function is. You can choose to hide it, meaning for that session only. The next time you log in, it'll pop up again. Or don't show me again, you'll never see the pop-up again. Currently, we do not have any of these calling videos. At some point, especially like the new ERA screen, once we get a video released, the pop-up bubble may also have a third hyperlink that says click to play video. Once the upgrade is released to you, you will have the new bubble in the upper right that accesses detailed progress notes. Our progress notes, as you notice here at the bottom behind the green bubble, are segregated by module. What we've been talking about here is billing, so it would be under the purple column. What I've just covered in 45 PowerPoint slides is over a couple hundred pages in the billing release notes. So obviously there's a lot more details included there than what I've summarized here. So that's entirely at your discretion if you want to take a benefit of that. Even after that new bubble disappears, release notes are always still part of your online help. And we have our resource center, of course, that hopefully you're familiar with and use. This PowerPoint that we've been discussing is available for you to download under the documentation tab, user quick guides. As I said, I've been recording this webinar, so this will also get compiled and posted out there under the webinar video option. If you have any questions, you can always contact us by phone or by email. All righty, so that brings us to the end of the session. For those of you present, are there any questions? If so, you can click your little raise hand icon and I will unmute you. Otherwise, I bid you a good day and we will see you in a future session. All right. Well, I see nobody raising their hand, so I'm going to request that you have a pleasant rest of your week, and we'll talk to you again in the future. Thank you very much.